What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's Daniel, and welcome back to our video. Today, I'll be taking a look at the intros for the 2025 Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So anyways, let's go ahead and just jump straight into it. We're going to start by talking about the one car for Trackhouse Racing. This one's going to be driven by Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain's coming off of having not the best run this past weekend at Dover, as he unfortunately crashed near the end of the event with around 20 laps to go. He's looking for a bounce back run this weekend. Ross had some decent speed last year at the Brickyard and has had some decent success in the past in the NASCAR Xfinity Series here. So I think Ross will have a decent chance and opportunity. The Trackhouse cars have also seemed to have a little more speed as of late. We'll see what Ross can do this weekend at the Brickyard. Up next up are the two car for Team Penske. This one's going to be driven by Austin Cindric. Austin Cindric had an okay run this past weekend at Dover as he scored a top 20 finish. He'll be looking for his first ever Brickyard 400 win and his second win of 2025 in Indianapolis, a track where Team Penske's had a lot of success, of course, in the Indianapolis 500. He'll look to have a good chance and opportunity and look to be a major factor and score his first ever Brickyard 400 win and his second ever Crown Jewel win in his NASCAR career. Up next, how about the three car for Richard Childress Racing? This one's going to be driven by Austin Dillon. Austin Dillon scored his first top 15 finish and his first finish of better than 19th in basically the last 2 or 3 months. This three team has struggled, but they had a solid run this past weekend at Dover, and they look to continue that momentum with a really good run at the Brickyard 400. I think Dillon will have okay speed, but will the finish be there? I'm not sure at this point, but he looks to have a solid run this weekend at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Up next, up with the four car for Front Row Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Noah Gragson. Of course, this weekend Front Row is an open team. They will be able to make the field with only 39 entries showing up. Noah Gragson's looking for a turnaround run. He had a really good run at Dover going before, unfortunately got caught up in a crash and an incident. I do expect Noah to have some okay speed maybe, but this team really needs a turnaround. They've been very inconsistent as of late, and I'm not really sure if Noah will be a factor. We'll see what he can do this weekend, though, at Indianapolis. Up next, top of the five car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson's coming off of having a really good run at Dover, scoring himself a solid top 5 finish, and comes this weekend as a defending winner of the Brickyard 400. He's going to be the odds-on favorite not to win the NASCAR Cup Series race, but also the favorite to win the Xfinity Series race as well, as Larson will run the Xfinity Series race as well. I expect Larson to have a really good chance to not just win the Cup Series race, but also win the Xfinity Series race as well in the 17 and the 5 cars. Up next, up is the 6 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Brad Keselowski. Brad Keselowski is coming off of having a solid top 10 run at Dover Motor Speedway, and Brad comes in with having a solid run last year before unfortunately running out of gas near the end of the event at the Brickyard 400. Now, Brad, of course, won the Brickyard back in 2018 with Team Penske and looks to pick up a second ever Brickyard 400 win. I think these cars have had decent pace and speed. We'll see what Brad can do with this team and organization. Maybe picks up his first win since Darlington of 2024. Up next, up with the 7 car for Spire Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Justin Haley. Justin Haley had some okay speed this past weekend at Dover, but he's looking for a massive turnaround run going into this weekend at Indianapolis. I'm just not sure where the speed of that 7 car is currently at the moment, as they haven't shown the main consistency that we've been looking for. We'll see what he can do, and we'll see if Justin Haley can be a factor for a decent and solid run this weekend at the Brickyard. Up next, up with the 8 car for Richard Childress Racing. This one's going to be driven by Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch is coming off of finishing inside the top 15 this past weekend at Dover and has 3 straight top 11 finishes. But Richard on the radio wasn't too happy about the inconsistencies of this team. Kyle had a lot of speed last year in the Brickyard, of course, is a 2-time winner of the Brickyard 400 back in 2015 and 2016. I think there's a chance Kyle could contend for a top 10. He's been decent at tracks like this season. We'll see what Kyle Busch can do. We'll see if he can be a factor for his 3rd Brickyard 400 win and his first win since Gateway of 2023. Up next, up with the 9 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by Chase Elliott. This 19, while they've only won 1 race in the last 6 or 7 events, this 19 has a ton of momentum. Of course, they won Atlanta Motor Speedway, but Chase Elliott's had 4 or 5 top 5 finishes in the last 6 races, and this 9 team is really clicking currently at the moment. He'll come in this weekend as one of the favorites to pick up the win in victory. I think he's going to have a fast car, will have a great opportunity to get it done. I expect Chase Elliott to have a really strong and good opportunity. He will be a pretty big factor for a victory this weekend at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Up next, up with the 10 car for Colleague Racing. This one's going to be driven by Ty Dillon. Ty Dillon is playing the Miracle Game, as of course he will be competing for the final round of the in-season tournament and will look to win $1 million. This team hasn't had the most speed this year, but I think it'd be pretty impressive if he could go out there and win the in-season tournament. We'll see what Ty Dillon can do. I'm not expecting Ty Dillon to be a factor for the win, but we'll see where the pace and speed can be, and we'll see if Dillon can have a chance and opportunity to get it done in a really good run. Up next up, the 11 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin's coming off of picking up a win this past weekend at the Dover Motor Speedway, scoring his fourth win of the year and his 58th career Cup Series win. He really only needs one win to get his legacy complete, and that, of course, is winning the Brickyard 400 outside of winning a championship. Hamlin came close to winning this race in 2020, had a really fast car last year. I think Denny Hamlin will have a really good chance and opportunity to win his first ever Brickyard 400 this year. Up next up with the 12th car for Team Penske. This one's going to be driven by Ryan Blaney. Ryan Blaney's coming off of having a very solid top 10 finish this past weekend at Dover and showed some really good speed at the track. Ryan has had some good speed this year, but is still looking for only his second win of the year. I do expect Ryan Blaney to be a factor for the victory. The Team Penske cars have been solid at tracks like this year. It would not be surprised or shocked if Blaney gets a second win of 2025 at Indy. Up next up with the 16 car for Colleague Racing. This one's going to be driven by AJ Allmendinger. Unfortunately, AJ's race at Dover did not go so well, as he unfortunately had brake issues throughout the event. He is looking for his first win on an oval in his NASCAR Cup Series career. This is a track where he almost won the Indy 500 back in 2013. We'll see if AJ can get it done. The call cars have been a little inconsistent this year. We'll see what he can do this weekend at Indianapolis. Up next up, the 17 car for RFK Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chris Buescher. Despite the fact that they struggled majority of the race at Dover, they salvaged a solid top 10 finish. And Buescher's consistency has been good. And with this track being very similar to Pocono, where they showed a lot of speed, I could see Buescher being a sleeper pick to get the victory this weekend at Indianapolis. I think the RFK cars have shown good speed at tracks like this year. I think you might see Chris Buescher be a potential factor for a potential win and maybe his first win of 2025 at the Brickyard. Up next up, the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Chase Briscoe. Chase Briscoe's had a ton of momentum as of late and has had back-to-back runner finishes at Sonoma and, of course, at the most recent race at Dover. And he's coming to a track very similar to Pocono, where, remember, he picked up the win and got his first win with Joe Gibbs Racing. I think Briscoe may be one of the favorites going in. It'd be a pretty massive victory if he could get it done. I think he will have a solid chance and opportunity to be a potential factor for a potential win this weekend at the Brickyard 400. Up next up with the 20 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This one's going to be driven by Christopher Bell. Christopher Bell, despite the fact he showed a lot of speed, made some mistakes and took himself out of contention for a victory. But I do think Christopher Bell will be a factor for a good run. This team started showing some speed at some tracks like this year, and I think Bell could potentially get that fourth win, but he has not won since he won the race at Phoenix in race 4 or 5 of the event. I think Bell will have a decent car, and I think will have a solid chance and opportunity for a great run at Indy. Up next up with the 21 car for the Wood Brothers. This one's going to be driven by Josh Berry. Since the early season, this 21 team has just not had consistent pace and speed. And Berry's had some good runs, but they haven't had the finishes to show for it at points this year. He's looking for his first top 5 finish since he won the race at Las Vegas. They've been so inconsistent as of late. I don't trust the 21 team currently at the moment. They've been better than when Harrison Burton was behind the wheel, but that's about it so far this season. Up next up with the 22 car for Team Penske. This one's going to be driven by Joey Logano. I really don't know what to make about the 22 team going in the moment right now. This team just doesn't have the same consistent pace and speed they had early in the year, and they have not been that strong. But Logano comes to a track where he's come close to winning the Brickyard 400 in the past. We'll see if Logano can get it done, and maybe, just maybe, for the first time in Logano's career, he might finally be able to have an opportunity to say he's won a Brickyard 400. Up next up with the 23 car for 2311 Racing. This one's going to be driven by Bubba Wallace. Bubba Wallace is coming off of having a really good run at Dover and scoring a solid top 10 finish. And last year in the Brickyard 400, Bubba Wallace had one of the strongest cars in the field, won a stage, and scored a lot of points in that event as well. I would not be surprised if Bubba's up there contending for the victory this week. And he's been really good at Indianapolis in the past. They've had some good cars at this track. I think he will contend for a top 5 and maybe also contend for a top 10 this weekend for sure at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Up next up with the 24 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This one's going to be driven by William Byron. William Byron struggled near the end of the race and got caught up in a crashing incident and was the weakest of the 400 cars at Dover. And this 24 team's had a lot of inconsistencies. In the race last year at the Brickyard, he unfortunately crashed out of the event. If he could bring the pace and speed, he might have a chance to get it done, but we're going to have to see if that consistency could be there for William Byron as he looks to pick up his first win since the Daytona 500 in February. Up next up at the 34 car for Front Row Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Todd Gillen. Todd Gillen did not have a lot of speed this past weekend at Dover and struggled quite a bit. He is looking for a turnaround run this weekend, and Front Row's been alright at this track in the past, but I don't expect much for them to be a major factor for a win. We'll see what Todd Gillen can do. I think they're going to do what they can to try to bring some okay speed. We'll see what this Front Row team can do this weekend at Dover Motor Speedway. Up next up at the 35 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Riley Herbst. Like the majority of the season, Riley Herbst did not have a good run at Dover and finished outside of the top 30 of the event, I believe. And there just hasn't been any speed in this 35 car majority of the season. The other two drivers at 2311 have been much better, and I really don't think Riley is going to be a contender this week. And yes, he won the Xfinity Series race here last year, but that doesn't really mean much when the cars are completely different. So it might be a struggle for Herbst. I don't expect him to be a factor this weekend at Indianapolis. Up next up at the 38 car for Front Row Motorsports. This one once again be driven by Zane Smith. Now last year in this race, Zane Smith had a really fast car and scored a solid top 5 and top 10 run throughout the event. And Zane and his 38 team have been the fastest front row car in 2025. I think Zane Smith will show some solid speed at the track. I do think Zane will be a potential factor for a potential top 10. I think the car will be good. I think we'll have a good chance and opportunity for a good run at Indy. Up next up with the 41 car for the Haas factory team. This will once again be driven by Cole Custer. Now, Cole Custer in the Xfinity Series race last year was really, really good and had a really good pace and speed. I don't expect that same speed this weekend for the Haas factory team. They had a couple good races there in the middle of the summer, but they really haven't had that same speed since the middle portion. And I don't trust the 41 team to be a major factor. Yes, Stuart Haas Racing, when they were SHR, was really good here over the years, but I think Cole Custer could have some struggles this weekend at Indianapolis. Up next up with the 42 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by John Hunter Nemechek. Now, John Hunter Nemechek unfortunately was eliminated from competing for the in-season tournament, but he did struggle at Dover, so it's not shocking and surprising. Now, John Hunter, of course, has contended for a win at Indianapolis in the NASCAR Xfinity Series back in 2018 for Chip Ganassi Racing, but since then hasn't been a major factor at the track. But Legacy's had some good speed at times. I feel like this 42 team's taken a step back the last couple of weeks. We'll see if Nemechek, though, can have a good run at Indy. Up next up with the 43 car for Legacy Motor Club. This will once again be driven by Eric Jones. Now, Eric Jones and his 43 team, unlike the 42, I feel like I've seen a little more speed out of the 43 car as of late, and there's been some solid consistency with this program as well. Eric Jones is looking for a really solid run this weekend, looking to get back on track after a couple not-so-great performances as of late. We'll see what Eric Jones can do, and we'll see if he can be a factor for a great run this weekend at Indy. Up next up with the 45 car for 2311 Racing. This will once again be driven by Tyler Reddick. Tyler Reddick came very close to picking up his first ever Brickyard 400 win in 2024. And Tyler Reddick had been decent at tracks like this year. Yes, there's some litigation going on and uncertainty around Tyler Reddick's future currently at the moment, but I don't think Reddick's letting that get to him at this point. We'll see what Reddick can do, and maybe, just maybe, for the first time in his career, Tyler Reddick can say he can have a crown jewel win, as I think he will be a solid factor for a win at Indy. Up next up with the 47 car for Hayek Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Now, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. has had some decent speed at times this year, but also recently that car has not been as strong as it was early in the year. He's looking for a turnaround run at Indy. If strategy comes into play, I could see him playing some strategy to get up front for a potential good run. We'll see what Stenhouse can do. I think he's going to have a solid potential opportunity here. If he can bring the pace and speed, we'll see if that car can be good at Indianapolis. Up next up at the 48 car for Hendrick Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Alex Bowman. Alex Bowman had a superb run this past weekend at Dover, scoring a third-place finish and padding his position in the cutoff area. I think he's going to have a good chance to win this race. The 48 team's been having a lot more speed as of late. They've had a lot of top 10s, a lot of top 5s, and he's been doing really good and needed some good runs. I think he will be a major factor for a win. He's looking for his first win since Chicago last year. I think he could potentially get that first ever Brickyard 400 win this weekend. Up next up at the 51 car for Rick Ware Racing. This will once again be driven by Cody Ware. Cody Ware unfortunately had tire troubles and brake issues throughout the race and finished near the bottom of the grid like he's been, unfortunately, for a majority of the season. He looks to have a really good run this weekend, though. I'm not expecting much. I think Justin Neely last year in this car actually ran well, but I don't expect the same from Cody Ware. I think it'll be a little bit of struggle for him this weekend at Indianapolis for this year's Brickyard 400. Up next up at the 54 car for Joe Gibbs Racing. This is once going to be driven by Ty Gibbs. This 54 team's been on a roll as of late. There's been a lot of consistency with the 54 team. Ty Gibbs had, I believe, 7 or 8 straight top 15 finishes. And Ty Gibbs coming off of having another solid top 10, jumping from 27th to 16th. And he's the other driver who is competing for the in-season tournament. He's a favorite to win that in-season tournament on Sunday with the pace he's shown. But you never know. They had engine issues and engine trouble last year. Maybe that'll creep up and give Ty Dillon the opportunity. But his car has been really good as of late. Up next up at the 60 car for RFK Racing. This will once again be driven by Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece didn't have a really good car at Dover and got caught up in a crash and incident late in the event. He's looking for a turnaround run, and I think he could have a turnaround run. The 60 car was really fast at Pocono, a track very similar to Indianapolis. I think this will be a bounce-back run for Ryan Preece as he looks for a top 10. Looks to pick up his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory. We'll see what he can do, and we'll see if he can be a factor this weekend at Indianapolis. Up next up with the 62 car for Beard Motorsports. This will be driven by Jesse Love, who's back behind the wheel of this car this weekend. Jesse Love is making, I believe, his 4th or 5th start of the year. He, of course, could be a potential candidate for a cup ride if we see Legacy expand to a 3rd car next year. So getting this experience is really important. It's also great to see that they're running the Brickyard 400 this weekend. We'll see what Jesse Love can do, and we'll see if he can be a potential factor for at least a decent run at Indy. Up next up with the 66 car for MBM Motorsports, or also known as Garage 66. This will once again be driven by Josh Bilicki. Bilicki, of course, made the race not too long ago in Chicago, and he's looking for this car to at least have a decent performance. I don't think this car will be a major factor for a win, or at least be on the pace at all. Probably be the slowest car on the racetrack, but good to see this team back. They've had people like Casey Mears, Chandler Smith, almost Mike Wallace get behind the wheel. We'll see if this car can have a good run at Indy. Up next up the 71 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Michael McDowell. Now, Michael McDowell does have a win here at Indianapolis, but that, of course, was at the road course where he won the race in 2023. Michael McDowell is looking for his first oval win in his NASCAR career. Track race similar to a road course, so I could see it be a potential possibility for McDowell. He looks to have a good run. We'll see if he can have a good performance like he had at Dover. He showed some pretty good speed this past weekend at Dover Motor Speedway. Up next up is the 77 car for Spire Motorsports. This will once again be driven by Carson Hocevar. Carson Hocevar is looking for a turnaround run. Unfortunately, the last couple races for Hocevar have not been that great and has dropped to 25th in the regular season standings. We come to a big flat oval, and I think Hocevar is going to have a good car. I think this could be the race that turns everything around for Hocevar as he looks for a really strong performance with the Spire Motorsports team. I think he's going to have some solid pace. I think he's going to have some solid speed. I think he could be a factor for a good run this weekend at the Brickyard. Up next up is the 78 car for Live Fast Motorsports. This will be driven by Catherine Lake, who added this race to her NASCAR schedule. She also, of course, ran the NASCAR Xfinity Series race on that same weekend as well. Catherine Lake making a really big deal as she will become only the 2nd female driver to run the Indy 500 and the Daytona and this Indy 5 and the Brickyard, the only other driver being Danica Patrick. She looks to do good things. She actually had a really solid run at Mexico not too long ago. Of course, got a top 20 in Chicago. She'll look to run really well and see if maybe she can salvage a solid run at the Brickyard. Up next up at the 88 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Shane Van Gisbergen. Shane Van Gisbergen unfortunately had tire troubles, never got the chance to see what he could do. He finished in 30th position at Dover. I think he's actually a sleeper for a decent run because remember in the Xfinity Series race last year, he scored a 4th place finish in that event. I really think he could be a sleeper for a top 20 or even a top 15, and you never know if you're in position and strategy comes into play, he could be a top 10 factor. I don't think tires are going to matter too much in this race, but SVG looks for a really strong run. I could see him doing really well this weekend at the Brickyard. And finally, let's talk about the 99 car for Trackhouse Racing. This will once again be driven by Daniel Suarez. Daniel Suarez had a disastrous day at Dover. He had one of the slowest cars in the field, ran around 25th to 30th all day long, and that car just never showed the pace and speed he needs to be a major contender, as he's still looking for a ride currently at the moment headed into 2026. We'll see what happens for Suarez this weekend. We'll see if he can have a good run, but he's never been really that good at Indy to begin with, and I don't think he'll have a great chance. We'll see if he can prove me wrong, though, and run good in the Brickyard. So that is going to be for the interest video for the 2025 Brickyard 400 at Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video, it does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's go to below that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. What are your thoughts on today's interest? Let me know it in the comments below, and let me know your early pick to win the Brickyard. Let me know it in the comments below. Today on the channel, we're also going to have the Craftsman Truck Series race picks for the race at IRP. Tomorrow on the channel, we're going to have basically a NASCAR news video dropping, and we're also going to have the Xfinity Series race picks as well. Then, of course, if any major news breaks, we're going to have that announcement officially on San Diego as well. I believe that's coming on Wednesday, by the way. And then, of course, on Thursday, we'll have the race picks for the Brickyard 400 and probably the paint scheme video as well, but I might push that to Friday. And we're going to have a lot of content dropping this weekend with the Brickyard 400 coming up. We'll have reviews for all three series. We're going to have content coming out, people like Haley Deegan, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Ball Walls, Ross Chastain, Clay Zafron, Dodge, Ram, Frankie Muniz, Connor Zillich, Junior Motorsports, Carson Quaffle, Sam Mayer, Sheldon Creed, Eric Almirola, all the good stuff will be dropping on the channel over the coming days and weeks. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content, other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.